Hourglass by Sarah Chastain. Narrated by Sarah Chastain. Chapter 1. Mutiny. Spring 1694. La Coruna, Spain. It was his wife Scarborough who first suggested mutiny, saying, "Darling, why are you wasting your time working twice as hard for the captain when you could be the captain?" Said Benjamin. "What do you have in mind, my dear?" "Mutiny," said Scarborough. "You already have the trust of the crew, and they see you more on their level than on that of the admiral or captain. I have heard them talking among themselves, and they are ready for new leadership. They just need an extra push." Scarborough elaborated by gesturing a pushing motion with her hand as if an invisible crew stood before her. "What a marvelous idea, my sweet. Your level of deception and brilliance always surprises me, but now I realize I married a very devious woman, whose lust for power is only matched by my own lust for that body." Benjamin kissed her hard on the lips and patted the top of her head in approval. It had been 8 whole months, and the men had seen no pay for their labors aboard the 46-gun privateer Charles II, captained by Charles Gibson. This ship was the flagship of 4 employed privately by Spanish Expedition Shipping, which was the business venture of several London-based investors and headed by a wealthy merchant, Sir James Habloon, who never stopped lining his pockets by the labor of seamen. Spain's Treaty of Madrid, having been what allowed the fleet to trade and recover treasure, had given the ship its name in honor of King Charles II. But all that would soon change when a new leader emerged as the voice of the people. They had been anchored off the Spanish port city of La Coruna, and the crew had literally been imprisoned for the period of time they waited for the approval of the voyage. Benjamin Bridgman had been working as first mate since the early part of the year 1694, and he still had not seen a penny for his efforts. It was now May, and the men had grown restless with the action of Admiral Byrne, who had not seriously considered the disgruntled crew's pleas as any concern for action on his part. Perhaps the commander knew that once many of his men received their dues, they would be able to leave employment of the ship completely, leaving Admiral Byrne with 4 crewless ships. This is when many members of the crew approached the first mate Benjamin and suggested mutiny. They could not leave without wages to pay for a trip back home, nor could they find any other ships willing to hire any more members to their crew, so they had no means of escape. Most of the men were upset with the inability to support their families by sending money back home, and this is what upset Benjamin Bridgman the most about the situation. His wife had joined him on board the ship as a cabin maid, and had seen no luxuries that a first mate's salary could typically provide. He had promised her his level of employment, and years of dedication had given him the kind of position that should be exempt from such injustices as non-payment. But alas, he and she were trapped by the wages indebted to them, and were determined to receive compensation for themselves and the crew. First Mate Benjamin investigated the rumor presented by Scarborough that the crew was not happy, and as predicted, many of the men had serious fear that they had been sold into a new form of slavery under the Spanish king. Many believed the act of mutiny was not only necessary but also patriotic. More than 25 men joined the first mate in his plan to overtake the Charles II, and they only had to wait for an opportunity to present itself. It was about a week later when the night for action was finally upon the rebellious crew. Having given a final demand to be paid and still being rejected, they restlessly waited for the right moment to strike. Scarborough, being involved in many of the kitchen activities, had purposely given Captain Gibson soup that had been coughed into by a few of the sickest men in the infirmary. This made the captain very ill, and he soon became bedridden due to his weakened condition. A few days later, while the captain grew more and more sick, Admiral Byrne was scheduled to sleep ashore, meaning no one in higher rank than Benjamin would be aboard the Charles II was strong enough to stop him. At about 9 o'clock, the 25 men led by Benjamin stormed the Charles II, taking it by siege. As the word spread to the other ship in the fleet, the James, many men from it pulled up in a longboat and asked the spy on the Charles II, "Is the drunken boatswain on board?" which is the password to join the mutiny. "My men are deserting me," called Captain Humphreys off the ship the James to the first mate Bridgman of the Charles II, who laughed and replied, "I know that perfectly well." Captain Humphreys then told the few men who remained loyal to the James to fire on the Charles II, and with a kaboom the cannon exploded, giving the Spanish night watch its first alert to the current situation. Benjamin Bridgman then called the rebel soldiers, "Ready the sails! We need to reach the open seas!" as he took hold of the wheel and turned it violently. The men worked quickly, faster than they had ever before known possible, and were able to quickly vanish into the night and off into safety. Once they had traveled far enough into the ocean, Benjamin Bridgman, as he was known to the crew, called all those who had not participated in the mutiny to the top of the deck, where they were quickly surrounded by the newly ordained and somewhat hostile crew of the Charles II. "What should we do, Benjamin? Kill 'em all, right?" said one of the rebels. Benjamin, startled by the mention of him as leader, replied, "No, anyone who does not wish to join us can go ashore in a rowboat. We don't need to spill the blood of the same men we once slaved next to." First Mate Benjamin then asked about the whereabouts of Captain Gibson, who was soon dragged from his bed, bound with rope, to be presented in front of the mutinous crowd. "What say you, Captain Gibson? Will you join us in our cause? I offer you the reasonable rank of, say, second mate, if you decide to stay aboard our new ship." And the entire crew chuckled at the embarrassing reduction in rank offered to the imprisoned Gibson. Former Captain Gibson began hacking loudly, expelling a cough that rattled his lungs violently, and then spit directly at First Mate Benjamin Bridgman, giving him an answer of "no" in a crude but well-understood fashion. With that, the new crew of the Charles II readied a boat for all those who did not wish to join the now pirates on their adventure. All but one man was tied, and he became the designated rower. Stripped of all weapons and knives, there was little chance the rower would be able to untie any or all of the men in time to get back to the ship and cause trouble. He was ordered at gunpoint to row in the direction towards shore and told not to return with any reinforcements. He was not to stop rowing until he reached shore, as they would watch his actions through a telescopic lens and had a cannon ready to be fired if he should decide to take any other action. It was not long before the boat and the ship had put enough distance between them that the crew could relax a little and chart the course for their next destination. Benjamin Bridgman called a meeting at the top deck as he steered the vessel into the winds. He called down to his crew as the newest pirate captain to be in charge of his own ship. "Aye, mates, there are a few matters of business to discuss," he growled over the breeze that blew subtly past his face, blowing the scarf behind him, trailing out like the tail of a kite. "First of all, the Charles here needs a new name, and I happen to have one in mind for now. The Fancy, for she's a very fancy ship, and will be even fancier when I get done with her." The crew all called with various guttural sounds, somewhat resembling "arg" or "aye," and all nodded their heads in approval. "The second order of business is where we're going to is a land of pirates so fierce that they cannot even be trusted by their own mothers. So we must stay strong and stick together in order to roam among those who are the most miserable scoundrels of the seven seas." Again the crew muttered and nodded in reply to the new pirate captain's orders. "Thirdly," said Benjamin, "I would like y'all to start calling me by my other name, Henry Avery. Gone are the days of long been your first mate. I now officiously want to be called what my mother originally dubbed me, as she would be so proud of me at this moment."